I found the baby sock in my fridge, tucked between a stick of butter and a jar of old pickles. One sock, yellow with little ducks on it. I live alone. That was the moment I realized I wasn't okay. I stood there in the dim light of the open fridge, holding that tiny sock with 2 fingers like it was radioactive. And suddenly I was back there, in the stairwell of that parking garage, holding the other sock, listening to her footsteps fading. She hadn't even looked back. That was 2 years ago. I told myself I was past it. I deleted her number, threw out everything she ever touched, even switched to decaf just because she hated it. But trauma has a funny way of curling up in weird corners of your life, like a cat you forgot you owned. It wasn't supposed to end this way. We never had that fight. You know, the loud one, with plates and slamming doors and screaming into pillows. No, we had quiet violence. The kind that comes in the form of sighs and disappearing dinner plans. I didn't even know I was being replaced. I was still buying groceries for 2 when she left. She left a calendar on the wall with a big red circle around April 12th. I never figured out what it meant. I stared at that date every morning for 3 months like it owed me answers. When I finally took the calendar down, I punched a hole in the wall and told everyone I'd fallen while installing shelves. I didn't speak to another human being for 11 days. But somehow, you keep going. I started collecting receipts just to feel like I had proof that I existed. I journaled things like bought bread or looked at a bird. One night, I spent 4 hours adjusting the brightness of my TV to find the exact level where the static didn't hurt my eyes. This was my life now. A slideshow of meaningless distractions. And then today was supposed to be a sock run. That's it. I needed socks. I wasn't ready for her. I turned the corner of the food court, and there she was, pushing a stroller, talking to someone on the phone, wearing that jacket. The one I gave her for Christmas, the one she said made her feel secure. I swear to God, I stopped breathing. Just froze. Like my body knew it would combust if I took another step. I was wearing a hoodie with a mustard stain and socks that didn't match. And she looked like she had walked out of a catalog titled New Life, No Regrets. She didn't see me, but the baby did. He locked eyes with me like he knew something. And I swear to you, he smiled. What happened next made me question everything I thought I knew about her, and about myself. I wanted to turn around. Just vanish into the crowd. Pretend I didn't see her. Pretend she didn't exist. But something held me there, like gravity. Like that baby's stare had pinned me to the floor. He looked maybe 1.5 years old. Chubby cheeks. Big, curious eyes. The kind of kid who could break your heart just by blinking. And the way he looked at me, I can't explain it. Not with logic, anyway. It wasn't just a glance. It was as if he recognized me. Not the way babies look at strangers with mild interest. This was different. Focused. Intentional. Almost like he was waiting. Then she saw me. She didn't say my name. Didn't gasp. No dramatic moment. Just froze. Mid-step. Her phone slipped from her shoulder. Her face drained of color like someone had just whispered the secret ending to her life. We stood there in silence, just 10 feet apart, in the middle of a shopping mall that suddenly felt like a museum of everything we used to be. A teenage girl pushing frozen yogurt brushed between us and muttered something, but I didn't catch it. Time had folded in half. I finally said, "Hi," like an idiot, like we were running into each other at a high school reunion. Her lips moved, but nothing came out at first. Then she blinked. Twice. And forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Calvin," she said, like it was a question. I hadn't heard her voice in over 700 days, and it still shook something loose inside me. I hated that it still had that effect. Hated that after everything she'd done, she could still rearrange my organs with 2 syllables. "I was just shopping," she said, like she needed to justify being alive in front of me. "With him?" I nodded toward the stroller. She looked down at the child as if remembering he was real. "Yeah, that's Linus." I blinked. "You named him Linus?" She gave a quick smile. The same one she used to give waiters when they asked if everything was okay, but she didn't want to complain. It felt right. That's when I asked something I wasn't planning to ask. Something that bypassed my brain and jumped out of my mouth like it had been waiting underground. "Is he mine?" Her smile died instantly. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just stared at me. And in that stare, I swear I saw 100 versions of the truth, all fighting to break the surface. Then, without answering, she reached into the stroller, picked up the baby, and started walking away. No explanation. No closure. Just walked. And here's the thing. She dropped something. As she turned and rushed off, a small envelope fell out of her oversized canvas bag. I watched it flutter to the floor in slow motion, like some scene from a film I wasn't supposed to be part of. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, letting it sit there and rot. But I picked it up. It wasn't addressed to anyone, just a plain white envelope, sealed. And inside was a photo. A photo that shattered the one piece of me I thought was finally starting to heal. What was in that photo is the reason I haven't slept since Saturday. And it's why tomorrow, I'm driving to Oregon. It wasn't just any photo. It was a Polaroid. Not digital, not printed from Walgreens. An actual, old-school Polaroid with that off-white border and a faint chemical smell that somehow hit me harder than anything else. Like grief has a scent. I pulled it out of the envelope with shaking fingers, already knowing it would hurt, already bracing for something awful. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what I saw. It was a picture of me. Not recent. Not some candid from the mall. A photo of me from 2 years ago, back when my face still had softness, before the sleepless nights turned my eyes into cracked glass. I was sitting on our old porch, the one we rented before everything fell apart. I was barefoot, holding a cup of tea, staring off into space like I didn't know someone was watching me. I don't remember this photo being taken. I flipped it over. One word was written in faded pen on the back, soon. That's when the full-body chill hit me. You know the kind. Not like when you're cold, but when your body is telling you something is deeply wrong. I stood there in the middle of the mall, gripping that photo like a lifeline, trying to breathe through what felt like a panic attack in slow motion. People were walking by. A toddler was screaming about a balloon. An elderly man sneezed. The world moved on while I stood frozen in a horror I couldn't explain. Why did she have this photo? Why was it in an unmarked envelope? And why the hell would it say soon? What did that mean? Soon what? Soon I'll know. Soon something will happen. Soon she'd tell me the truth. My brain started spinning out, rewriting 100 timelines where I confront her, where she tells me this was all part of some plan, or joke, or punishment. But she was already gone. I paced the parking garage for nearly an hour, envelope in one hand, coffee I didn't buy in the other. I stared at cars, trying to see if hers was still around. It wasn't. She had vanished like a dream that makes sense right up until you try to explain it out loud. When I finally got home, I did the only thing I could think to do. I went down into the basement, sat on the cold cement floor, and pulled out the old box where I kept everything she didn't take. You know how people tell you to let go of the past? Yeah, I kept mine in a cardboard tomb behind the furnace. Her scarf, our first movie tickets, the key to a house we never bought. It was all there, covered in dust and dead spiders. And right on top, like some twisted cosmic joke, was a second photo. Also a Polaroid. Also of me. Different day. Same porch. Same blank stare. This one had a note on the back too. Remember, I hadn't put that photo there. I swear to you, I hadn't. I would have remembered. I tore through the rest of the box, heart thudding, hands trembling. And at the very bottom, I found something I hadn't seen since the week she left. A notebook. A green, spiral-bound notebook she used to write in during our last year together. I had never opened it. I figured it was full of thoughts I didn't deserve to read. But now, suddenly, it felt like the only map I had. So I opened it, and the first page said, "He doesn't know he's being followed." That was last night. Now I can't stop checking the windows. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I just sat there on the edge of the basement steps, staring down into the darkness like it owed me answers. That notebook sat next to me, closed now, but humming in my brain like an alarm I couldn't shut off. He doesn't know he's being followed. Who the hell wrote that? Was it meant for me? Or was it something she wrote years ago about someone else during one of her self-discovery phases? I'd never touched the thing before. Never even looked at the cover. I thought she took it with her when she left. But now it was here, sitting in my house like it had always been waiting. I started flipping through the pages again. Most of it was garbage. Lists of books she wanted to read. Doodles. Half-written thoughts about leaving the city. Notes about disconnecting from digital dependence. Very her. But some pages were different. One had a drawing of our front porch. The same view from the Polaroids. Another had dates. Specific dates. Some were circled. One had a star next to it. October 14th. That was the day we lost power during a thunderstorm and had to light candles and play cards for hours. I remember thinking that night was the calmest we'd been in months. She wrote one sentence beneath it. He finally noticed the sound. What sound? I stood up, suddenly needing to move. I went outside and stood barefoot in the backyard, just breathing in the night air like it might flush out whatever had crawled into my head. There was a faint buzz in the distance, maybe a transformer, or my neighbor's broken AC unit humming through the trees. But now I couldn't unhear it. It was like I was tuning into something I was never meant to notice. Like something behind the noise was whispering. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since she left. I opened the attic. We had boxes up there from our last move that I never bothered to unpack. I was never good at letting go of anything, and after she left, the attic became sort of a dead zone. But now it felt like maybe something was hidden there. I pulled the ladder down and climbed into the dust. At first, it was just the usual junk, coats, Christmas decorations, board games we never played. But behind a stack of old lamps and a torn yoga mat, I found something strange. A shoe box. No label. Just a box taped shut with electrical tape and shoved behind a wooden beam like someone wanted it forgotten. I opened it. Inside were more photos. Not Polaroids this time, printed ones, high quality. And they weren't just of me. They were of me, and her, and someone else. A man I didn't recognize. Tall, lean, always blurred just enough to hide his face. In one picture, I'm walking to my car, alone, while the man stands across the street behind a tree. In another, he's sitting 2 rows behind us at a movie theater. In yet another, he's outside our old apartment, half hidden behind a hedge. The timestamp in the corner of one of them said April 12th. The circled calendar date. My stomach turned. My fingers went cold. I flipped the last photo over and found the same handwriting as the Polaroids. Soon, I dropped the box. It spilled across the floor like broken memories. I backed away, nearly tripping down the attic ladder. I sat on the floor of the hallway, heart pounding in my ears. The walls felt too close, the house too small, and suddenly the silence was unbearable because it wasn't silent. Not really. There was still that hum, that strange, low-frequency buzz I hadn't noticed before. But now it was everywhere. In the walls, the vents, my teeth. I tried to call someone. Anyone. I opened my phone and realized I hadn't updated a single contact in over a year. I hadn't even told my sister I saw us sold again. I hadn't told anyone about the baby, or the mall, or the photo, or the box. I was alone in this. No one even knew what I had found. Or maybe someone did. Because just as I was about to message my sister, my phone lit up with a new number. No caller ID. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, and then I answered. All I heard was breathing. Long, slow, deliberate. Then a voice. A man's voice. Calm, quiet, almost polite. "Calvin," he said. "Stop looking." And then the line went dead. I haven't been able to eat since. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't shower. I barely moved. The man's voice from that call had stuck to my brain like tar, and I couldn't scrape it off no matter how hard I tried. "Stop looking," he had said, like a warning. Like he knew exactly where I was and what I was doing. But how? How long had he been watching me? Was it even real? Was this just paranoia, or something worse? At 3 a.m., I found myself in the kitchen, fully clothed, holding a fork I didn't remember picking up. My fridge was wide open again, and there, next to the mustard, was the baby's sock. The same sock. I had thrown it away 3 times already. The first time into the trash, then into a public bin by the bus stop, and finally, I dropped it down a storm drain like it was cursed. But every time, it came back. Same stain, same fold in the heel. No note, no explanation. Just there. I dropped the fork. The clatter echoed through the house like a gunshot. My brain had officially turned against me. But the moment that convinced me I wasn't just losing it came 20 minutes later. I turned on the hallway light and carved into the paint on the wall, so faint it almost disappeared in daylight, were 3 words. "You forgot again." I staggered back, staring at the wall, breath caught in my throat. The lettering was thin, like it had been carved with a key or a nail. I touched it. The grooves were real. But what did it mean? Forgot what? And why again? I went back to the basement, dragging the shoebox with me, the one full of photos I still couldn't explain. I laid them all out on the floor like puzzle pieces, trying to find something I'd missed. That's when I noticed something. All the photos had the same background sound distortion, a subtle warping in the printed gloss. I held one up to the light and tilted it just right, and something shimmered beneath the surface, almost like hidden writing under the glossy coating. I dug out a blacklight from an old drawer. It took 20 minutes and 4 dead batteries, but I finally got it working. When I shined it over the photo, I saw a word, burned into the image like a ghost stamp. Test. I checked another. Same thing. Different photo, same hidden word. Control. Another. Disrupt. Each photo had one word, always hidden beneath the surface, always perfectly centered like someone had intentionally marked them for classification. I wasn't looking at snapshots. I was looking at labels, files, data. That's when the memory hit me. Not a flashback, a full-body jolt, like being dropped into cold water. 2 years ago, maybe a month before she left, I'd gotten sick. Nothing dramatic, just dizziness, headaches, trouble sleeping. I thought it was stress. We weren't doing well then. The tension was everywhere, thick enough to choke on. But there was one night, around that same time, where I had blacked out completely for about 8 hours. I woke up on the couch, even though I remembered going to bed. My clothes were different. My phone had no calls, but my text showed a message to someone named Agent M, which had already been deleted. I asked Isolde about it the next day. She said I must have been sleepwalking. "You've been weird lately," she told me, brushing it off. But I remembered the way she looked at me that morning, like she was afraid, but pretending not to be. Now I couldn't stop thinking about it. What if those weren't just strange days in a bad relationship? What if I was being watched? Or worse, what if I had agreed to it? What if I had signed up for something I'd blocked from memory? Some trial? Some program? And then I remembered something that made my stomach turn inside out. April 12th. The circled calendar date. The day the power went out. The day we had candlelight and cards and laughed for the first time in weeks. That was also the day after my blackout. And that night, right before bed, Isolde said something strange. She said, "If you forget this night, I'm done." I thought it was metaphorical. I thought she meant emotionally. But what if she meant literally? I started tearing apart my bedroom, flipping drawers, opening everything that might hide something. A USB drive, a note, anything. And behind a loose panel in my closet, wedged between insulation and drywall, I found a cassette tape. Yes, a literal tape, labeled in Sharpie. "Calvin, remember, do not play at night." So of course I played it. But that was a mistake. Because the voice on the tape? It was mine, saying things I have no memory of ever saying. And what I said has changed everything I thought I knew. I didn't even own a cassette player. Not anymore. The last one I had was a dusty Walkman that vanished during our third move, probably tossed with the tangled phone chargers and blank CDs. But I remembered that the local thrift store had a bin of old electronics near the back, between the cracked VHS tapes and broken lava lamps. So I threw on the same hoodie I'd been wearing for 3 days, stuffed the tape into my pocket, and drove like I was chasing a deadline that didn't exist. I found a player, a cheap, yellowed plastic relic that reeked of someone else's basement. $5 and a cracked AUX cable later, I was sitting in my car in the thrift store parking lot, holding the past in my hands like a bomb I couldn't disarm. The label still stared back at me in my own handwriting. That's what hit me hardest. I had written this. "Calvin, remember, do not play at night." But I didn't remember writing it. I didn't remember owning it. I didn't remember recording anything. I pushed the tape in. It clicked. The motor word. Then silence. A long, buzzing silence filled only by the faint hum of the car engine and the ticking of my turn signal, which I'd forgotten to shut off. And then I heard it. My voice. Clear. Calm. Unmistakably mine. But slower. More deliberate. As if I was trying not to scare someone. Or myself. "If you're listening to this, you already know too much," I said. "You've seen the sock. You've found the notebook. You've been contacted. That means the loop has started again." I froze. The loop? What loop? I turned off the signal, leaned in, and let the voice continue. Every word hit like a nail being driven into something I hadn't realized was buried inside me. "They don't want you to remember, Calvin. That's the point. Every time you get close, something resets. A conversation, a sickness, a blackout. She plays her part. The child is part of it. But none of it is real. Not in the way you think. You're not being punished. You're being studied." I nearly dropped the player. "Studied?" The voice continued, emotionless. "Cold. Her name isn't Isolde. You were never married. That memory was fabricated to anchor you emotionally. The child was introduced during trial 4. This is trial 7. Each time you reach this point, the envelope, the photo, the phone call, they escalate." I paused the tape. My breathing was ragged. Sweat had formed under my sleeves. I checked the rearview mirror. No one. I scanned the parking lot. A woman with a baby stroller crossed the sidewalk in front of me, and I flinched so hard I hit my head on the ceiling. Trial 7? Fabricated memory? It couldn't be real. This was either a massive prank, a psychotic break, or something darker I wasn't equipped to understand. I hit play again. Listen carefully, the voice said. There is a safe deposit box under the name M.H. You opened it once before. Box 712. Use your old driver's license. They haven't flagged it yet. Inside, you'll find a document, classified, signed by you. You agreed to this. Silence again. And then, almost like an afterthought, one that chilled me deeper than anything else on the tape, my voice added. She's not the one watching you. You are. And then the tape ended. I sat there in stunned silence, the thrift store parking lot now glowing orange under the late afternoon sun. I didn't move. Not for a full 10 minutes. Just sat, trying to feel where the edges of reality were, and failing. The phrase, "you are," kept looping in my head like a riddle. What did that even mean? How could I be watching myself? I looked down at the cassette player, as if it might offer more, but it was dead silent now. I rewound it. The same message. No more. No less. There was only one thing left to do. I drove to the bank. I didn't even know if I still had access to a safe deposit box. I barely remembered setting one up years ago when we moved into our second apartment. I think I used it for old tax documents and some insurance forms. But box 712 meant something. The way my voice had said it, it wasn't a suggestion. It was an instruction. The woman at the counter looked me up and down, clearly doubting whether I belonged in a bank at all, let alone near something valuable. I handed her my ID. My real one. The one I hadn't used in months. She scanned it, typed something, frowned, and then looked up at me. You haven't accessed this box in quite a while, she said slowly. So it exists? She nodded. Yes, it's still here. Box 712. I nearly passed out. She took me down to the vault. My heart felt like it was vibrating. The lights flickered as she unlocked the drawer. You'll need to sign here, she said, handing me a clipboard. I didn't even read it. I just signed. She left me alone in the private room, and I pulled out the small metal drawer. My hands were sweating so badly they slipped on the handle. I braced myself, opened it. Inside was a single item, a manila envelope, labeled, for Subject C. Hallstrom, do not duplicate, trial 7/8/recall. I opened it, and what I saw changes everything. Everything about who I thought I was, about who she was, and what they are really trying to do. There were 22 pages inside the envelope, all of them printed on thick, matte paper with redacted blocks so heavy they looked burned in. No logos, no letterhead, just black ink and silence. But the first page was enough to make my mouth go dry. In the upper corner, it read, Recall Protocol, C. Hallstrom, Subject Clearance, Mirror Tier. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But my name, my full name, was there. Typed. Labeled. Not handwritten, not misspelled, not guessed. Whoever created this file had access to official information about me. Things I hadn't told anyone. Details that had never appeared online. My old middle school. The name of my first pet. Even the code I used to label my home Wi-Fi network 5 years ago. Page 2 was a questionnaire, half filled out in my handwriting. I would swear on my life that I've never seen that paper before. And yet, there it was. Each line unmistakably written by my hand. The questions were off. Not quite scientific, not quite psychological. Things like, what is your earliest memory that does not belong to you? When did you first hear the hum? Do you believe in artificial grief? The third page was mostly redacted, except for one paragraph. And that's where everything shifted. Subject has reached loop point 6, with traces of partial recall. The Isolde asset has been reintroduced to monitor behavioral variance post-emotional fracture. The child unit, model L45, continues to elicit expected empathy response. Memory gaps remain within allowable thresholds. However, Subject has deviated by reassessing tape 1 and box 712 ahead of projected schedule. I read that paragraph over at least 30 times. Loop point 6. Isolde asset. Model L45. What the hell was any of this? And more importantly, was I losing my mind, or had I just stumbled into a version of reality I had been deliberately shielded from? I flipped to the next page. And there, in bold letters across the top, was a phrase I hadn't seen before but immediately understood the weight of. Trial 8 scheduled. Induced collapse date, August 9th. That's 4 days from now. I dropped the pages on the desk. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely stay upright. I backed away from the table like it might explode. And then I saw it, something I hadn't noticed before. Taped to the inside of the lid of the box was a photograph. A newer one. Full color. No gloss. A surveillance photo of me, standing outside the mall. From last week. From the day I saw her. Only in this photo, she wasn't pushing the stroller. She was standing behind me. Staring directly into the camera. Expressionless. That was impossible. I hadn't seen her behind me. She had approached from the front. I remembered it clearly. But here she was, positioned like an observer. Not a participant. I put the photo down and started to panic. I needed to get out. But as I stepped into the hallway, I noticed the vault lights were dimmer than before. The air felt heavier, like something had shifted. I pushed the button to summon the bank clerk, but no one came. I knocked. Called out. Nothing. I opened the hallway door. The bank lobby was empty. Completely deserted. Phones off their hooks. Papers scattered. And then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And then all at once, the vault door behind me slammed shut on its own. I ran. I didn't look back. I don't remember getting into my car or driving home, but somehow I did. The documents are with me now. Hidden. I haven't told anyone. Haven't called the police. Haven't even dared to type this from my own computer. I'm using a burner I bought from a pawn shop 3 towns over. Because if this is what it looks like, then someone, something, is watching everything I do. Maybe they have been for years. Maybe that's why Isolde, or whoever she really is, reappeared now. To keep me from reaching the edge. But it's too late for that. And here's the part one haven't said out loud to anyone, even myself. I'm starting to remember things that never happened. Flashes. Rooms I don't recall entering. Conversations with people who don't have faces. Waking up with unfamiliar bruises. The sound of the hum growing louder each night. And this morning, when I looked in the mirror, for a split second, I swear I saw someone else looking back. Someone smiling. The hum is gone. That's the first thing I noticed this morning. After everything, the tape, the photos, the vault, the impossible memories, I opened my eyes in the silence of my apartment and realized it was finally quiet. Not the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring, but real silence. The kind that feels clean. Like the air has been scrubbed. Like my mind has stopped glitching against invisible walls. For a moment, I thought maybe I was dead. Or dreaming. But no, I was here. I was me. And for the first time in 2 years, I actually knew what that meant. Let me back up. After I escaped the bank, I drove for hours without a destination. I took side roads. Turned off my phone. Ate gas station food I barely tasted. I ended up in a small town 3 states away, where no one knew my name. I rented a room above a hardware store and just sat. I didn't try to figure anything out. Didn't try to unravel the loops or decode the past. I just let it all settle. And that's when things began to change. The memories stopped coming in fragments. I stopped seeing strangers in the mirror. The bruises faded. And the nightmare hum that had followed me for what felt like forever finally went silent. I started sleeping again. Full nights. Dreamless and deep. I started writing things down. Not to investigate. Not to obsess. Just to remind myself that I exist. Then, one morning, I woke up to sunlight cutting through the curtains and a note slipped under my door. No envelope. Just a single folded piece of paper. The handwriting was familiar. Elegant. Precise. You were never broken. Just buried. And now you're free. That's all it said. I don't know who I really is, whether she was real, programmed, assigned, or something else entirely. Maybe she played her part in some experiment I'll never fully understand. Or maybe she was just another damaged person like me, trying to find her way out of a story someone else wrote for her. It doesn't matter anymore. Because that note, whatever its origin, was right. I wasn't broken. I was buried. Buried under guilt, confusion, false memories, and fear. Buried so deep I forgot what it meant to trust my own mind. But I dug myself out. Slowly. Messily. Alone. And in doing so, I found something I didn't know I'd been missing all along. Peace. I've since returned home. I moved out of the old house. Burned the Polaroids. Gave the tape to a local audio artist who turned it into a sound collage for a college project. I told him it was performance art. He believed me. I adopted a cat, not because I was lonely, but because I wanted to care for something real. His name's Griffin. He's moody and sleeps on my keyboard, but he's here, present, alive. And just last week, I ran into someone at the bookstore, a woman named Mira. We both reached for the same copy of a poetry book and laughed awkwardly. She asked if I'd read it before. I told her the truth. I don't remember. And then I added, but maybe I'm ready to experience it for the first time. We got coffee. No loops. No hums. No ghosts. Just two people talking about books and life and the weird beauty of second chances. I'm not saying I've solved everything. I'm not saying I have all the answers. But I don't wake up afraid anymore. I don't feel like I'm being watched. And maybe, just maybe, that means I've won. So if you're reading this and you feel lost or fractured or buried under things you can't explain, hold on. Keep digging. There's light under all that darkness. And eventually, if you keep going, you'll find it. I did.